There's nothing better than freedom, wouldn't you say? I'm your host, Jonina, and these are top 10 prison escape stories that will shock you. If you want to keep up to date with the latest videos on this channel, make sure to press subscribe and ring the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyway, let's get started. Number 10, the outlandish escape from a Mexican prison. Joel David Kaplan was a New York businessman who had been arrested for execution in 1962 in Mexico City and was incarcerated at the Santa Marta Acatitla in the Iztapalapa borough of Mexico City. Joel's sister Judy Kaplan arranged the means to help Kaplan escape, and on August 19, 1971, a helicopter landed in the prison yard. The guards mistakenly thought this was an official visit, and in 2 minutes, Kaplan and his cellmate Carlos Antonio Contreras, a Venezuelan counterfeiter, were able to board the craft and were piloted away before any shots were fired. Both men were flown to Texas, and then different planes flew Kaplan to California and Castro to Guatemala. The Mexican government never initiated extradition proceedings against Kaplan. The escape is told in a book, The 10-Second Jailbreak, The Helicopter Escape of Joel David Kaplan. It also inspired the 1975 action movie Breakout, which starred Charles Bronson and Robert Duvall. At number 9, the escape of 3 Irish Republican Army members. On October 31st, 1973, an IRA member hijacked a helicopter and forced the pilot to land in the exercise yard of Dublin's Mountjoy Jail's D Wing at 3:40 p.m. October 31st, 1973. 3 members of the IRA were able to escape: J.B. O'Hagan, Seamus Toomey, and Kevin Mallon. Another prisoner who also was in the prison was quoted as saying one shamefaced screw apologized to the governor and said he thought it was the new Minister for Defense, Patty Donegan, arriving. I told him it was our Minister of Defense leaving. The Mountjoy helicopter escape became Republican lore and was immortalized by the helicopter song, which contains the lines, "It's up like a bird and over the city. There's 3 men missing, I heard the warders say." Number 8, on November 3rd, 2019, Samuel Fonseca, 21, and Jonathan Salazar, 20, both convicted executioners, escaped from the Monterey County Jail, located in Salinas, California. The 2 men escaped after using a hard plastic cleaning brush to knock a hole in the restroom sheetrock ceiling. The hole was in a blind spot in the communal bathroom that could only be seen by someone going inside the restroom. They then escaped by going through the 11-inch wide hole, then through a maintenance gap between walls, and finally out a hatch that was kicked open, with the cameras nearby blocked by recent construction. After they escaped, they took off their jail suits. They were wearing street clothes underneath that allowed them to blend in as they headed to Tijuana, Mexico. Fonseca and Salazar had been in rival gangs and were not known to associate with each other or being housed in the same unit of the jail. Similarly, it is unknown why the 2 headed for Tijuana, how they made the 7-hour trip, and why they tried to re-enter the US from Mexico around midnight 3 days after their escape, only to be arrested by the US Marshals on the border. Fonseca was accused of executing 2 men over 3 days in Salinas in June 2018. Salazar was arrested in the October of 2017 for the shooting and passing of a Salinas man and the wounding of the man's wife while the couple drove in a Salinas neighborhood. Number 7, the escape involving what guards thought was an impossible stunt. In 1921, at age 22, Victor Folk Nelson made a sensational and highly publicized run and escape from a line of 13 prisoners after attending chapel at the Charlestown State Prison. Despite an attempted intervening tackle from a prisoner trustee and bullets from a guard's gun, Nelson ran some distance, leapt, caught the lower end of the window bars, and scaled the 40-foot high wall of the prison's Cherry Hill section. At the top of the wall, he performed what was always believed an impossible stunt, throwing his body across a 10-foot space of the wall, where he managed to catch hold of the coping of a nearby structure and then to drop 30 feet down to the Boston and Maine Railroad tracks. He then convinced to volitionally return to prison by his respected mentor and progressive penologist Thomas Mott Osborne several months later. His mentor was the only one to know of his whereabouts, meaning no one but Osborne found him until he turned himself in. Number 6, the infamous escape from Alcatraz. On June 11, 1962, Frank Morris and the brothers John and Clarence Anglin, 3 inmates of the Alcatraz maximum security federal prison located on an island in San Francisco Bay, pulled off one of the greatest prison escapes in American history. After months of planning, they squeezed through air vents and made their way into the Pacific Ocean, where they boarded a raft that they'd made out of stolen raincoats. They were never seen again because their raft and paddles washed up ashore. Many believe the men drowned in the icy waters. The Anglin family insists the brothers survived and have presented evidence to prove it, and the FBI can't quite figure out what to believe. Number 5, the only person to ever successfully escape and remain hidden from New York State Prison. On February 6, 1997, Victor Figuera, a convict serving 1 to 4 years for substance possession, was supposed to be on the way to a mess hall when he wandered off from the Moria's Shock Incarceration Facility, a minimum security prison in Mineville, New York. As soon as his absence was noticed, authorities scoured the area, but the trail went cold. Authorities believe Figuera passed away during the escape, most likely in a fall through a mine shaft near the facility. All anyone knows for sure is Figuera was never seen or heard from again, and he's the only New York State prison inmate to escape and never be found. Number 4, in 1987, Glen Stewart Godwin escaped from Folsom State Prison in California. He was serving a lengthy sentence for execution, according to the FBI. The agency still has him on its most wanted list. Later that year, he was arrested for substance trafficking in Mexico and sent to prison in Guadalajara. In 1991, he allegedly executed a fellow inmate and escaped yet again. He goes by a number of aliases, including Michael Carrera, Nigel Lopez, and Dennis Harold McWilliams, and is believed to be somewhere in Central or South America. The FBI is offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. He has never been found and could still be out there right now. Number 3, on June 1st, 1971, Leonard Rayne Moses escaped after being granted a furlough from prison to attend his grandmother's funeral in the Homewood section of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At the time, he was serving a life sentence for execution in connection with the Pittsburgh riots of 1968 that followed the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Moses remains at large and is still considered armed and dangerous. The FBI is offering a reward up to $10,000 for information leading directly to the arrest of Moses. This one is crazy. Imagine using your grandmother's funeral to escape from prison. I'm not sure if that's kind of crazy or kind of smart. Number 2, the escape of a crime ring king. Omid Nino Tavili was the head of a Persian organized crime network in Canada. In 2007, while in custody, Tavili walked out of a maximum security prison in Canada's British Columbia wearing a janitor's uniform. He had the assistance of a guard who he'd bribed to look the other way. The guard, whom Tavili never paid, was prosecuted, but Tavili remains an international fugitive. Tavili is also wanted in the US in connection with a fraudulent telemarketing business that targeted the elderly. In 2017, Tavili, who is now almost 40, may have called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to negotiate his return to custody in exchange for a promise not to extradite him to the US, but authorities have doubts the call was credible. And at number 1, a man with a plan. On August 22nd, 1970, George Edward Wright first escaped from a New Jersey prison. He was caught and put back in prison, only to escape again in 1972. And then he came up with a plan to avoid being re-imprisoned. On July 31st, 1972, Wright and accomplices hijacked a Delta airplane. After collecting ransom and releasing the passengers, Wright and his crew flew the plane to Algiers. In 2011, the police caught up with him in Portugal. Since Portugal has no extradition treaty with the US, Wright was released and remains at large. Thanks for watching. Those were top 10 prison escape stories that will shock you. I mean, they shocked me, so comment if it shocked you too. Leave a like and also comment if you think we missed anything, and we hope you have a scary day.